Hey, welcome to Area 51 Raceway. Today we're going to start doing the video on the Showdown chassis kit. So we're going to build a rolling chassis for this 132nd Atlantis 82 Z28 Camaro. And this can be easily made into a dirt car for the Showdown series. So this chassis kit is specifically for the Showdown series cars. It comes with the wheels, tires, and everything needed to make the chassis, and as always it says, warning: kits made in this kit, contents of this kit may be extremely addictive, and that sure is true because I have several cars to prove that. So when you pop the the package open, you're going to remove it and put the box aside, keep it as a little keepsake. And right here, of course, the warnings for small children, and it's all in the plastic bag here. And you're going to open it up, and you're going to take all the contents out of the kit. You have your brass. You have your slot corner decal. You have your commercial guide with lead wires and braid. The wheels for this kit. And we're going to get the body screws, 3/32 shims and motor screws, grub screws that are required for this. And of course the 4 FF style wheels, or tires, excuse me, for this build, because these protrude out of the body because that's how a dirt car is. And in here we have the motor, the gears, the axle, the pinion gear, the oil lights, as we call them, bushings, and your motor. And your motor is the 18,000 RPM for this series here. And there you go. Here's your kit. Brass actually that I want to remove is the tube. And then what I'm going to do is take 2 wheels out. And then I'm going to take the motor bracket. One axle. And 2 the oil light bushings. So get that out of the way there. If you're not using it, put it back in the bag. Don't leave it lying around. And then you put everything aside. And this is the first pieces I'm going to need right here. Reason why is that I want to size my axle width for the model. We want to size the tube in between here when we get the tires and wheels together, and I'll show you what I mean, to fit this all in between here. So one thing you do want to get out is 2 grub screws, which I forgot to do that, and I'm going to get 2 grub screws out of my small package here. And they're really tiny, so please take caution to take these out, because this comes only with what's in the kit, and if you lose it, you will have to order more grub screws to replace the ones you've lost or misplaced, and that can get frustrating. So just be cautious to put your stuff back in the bag, just like that. Put that off to the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my grub screws in first into these wheels. And let me get my glasses because I'm somewhat blind up close to things. I'm going to put my grub screws in. Just put them in. You don't have to tighten them all the way down because obviously they're not going against an axle. Get your other grub screw. Put it in. Okay. Now, what I usually do is I get a small ruler that I have here, centimeter ruler, and the tool you will need is a tubing cutter. And let me get that. Just give me a moment. Here's my tubing cutter. Now this process I've repeated a lot of time in other videos, but we're making one just for this chassis kit because everybody's been requesting it, and that's no big deal. We'll do it. Here is your ruler. There's your tube for your axle on the ruler. So we're gonna go about I would say, since it's going to protrude out, the tire is going to protrude out because that's how it is on a dirt car. And this is what kind of the illusion you want on the car, or give it the appearance. So we're going to go, let's say 6 centimeters. So that'll protrude the tire out. So to achieve that, you're going to have to guesstimate the tube here, or measure and then guess. To this, it's just doing it as you go. So I'm going to cut 4 centimeters. What I usually do is get a marking pen and go right about, oh, let's say 4.5, just to be extra, how would you say, sure, if we got extra. So that may be too much, but you're going to see what I mean. So let's say 4.5 for this one. I'm going to get my tubing cutter and cut the mark right on the mark where I made, cut where I made the mark. Like that. Then I spin this. You will need this tool in order to cut these, unless you want to use a Dremel, but a Dremel is not exactly, I would say, super straight at times. So I like using the tubing cutter because I could cut this nice and straight. Tubing cutter is pretty easy to get. It's local Lowe's, Amazon, or a plumbing place, or if you can find that they have tubing cutters, because this is a small tubing cutter, nothing large. And there we go, broken off. You also, if you can use X-Acto blade as well, because I'm kind of using a file, but you can use an X-Acto blade. Another method of shaving that off, which will probably be easier. I just wanted to show you the file, because there's different ways of doing it. And drill bit, and then just do that. So you could use a blade if you want. You can use a file, or you can use a little drill bit of the same size that this is, which I can't remember. It's just 7/32. There we go. It's got our bushings in. That should be pretty good. Leaves you a lot of room to put the wheel on and stuff, and if you need to shim it a little bit more. Okay, there you go. So this is altogether 5.5 centimeters with the wheel and the axle tube. So that should be pretty good right there. And I'm going to put these on, the tires on, see what it looks like in the body. Right body, and that's actually looks pretty good. There you go. And of course you're going to hog these out. And then if you want to move it out just a teeny bit, you can 10 thousandths if you want to give a little bit more wide track. But that generally it's about what we're going to look for. And of course these have to be hogged out. When I say hogged out, these have to be made wider so it looks like a dirt car. Right now it looks like a street car. It's because these tires don't look good on it. And these wheels, because, well, the way it looks, because you have to open these up more. We'll get onto that a lot later. So there you go. Okay, here we go. So we're going to solder the tube on to the motor bracket. And I'm going to solder from this side, because when I put my solder here, it's going to flow to the other side of the tube. I did it on the inside because it looks just my preference in doing it. Now that I have everything, anchored down, this is equal. This distance between the motor bracket and the end of the tube is very close on each side. It's off by maybe a centimeter or a few centimeters from one side to the other, but it's fine. It's not gonna kill anything. You're not like massively off, so it's perfect where it sits. Now what I'm gonna do is get my flux, put a dab of it right here, brush it on with a little cheap brush, and turn on my soldering iron, which I should have had on already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this all set here. And now my soldering iron is ready. Get my solder. And I'm going to go right here and just put the iron right here and hold it. You see how the solder flows? One thing you want to do is keep the iron on it. A lot of guys will tend to put this on here and leave it on for like 10 seconds and pull it off and expect it to solder. You want the flux to do the work for you. That's a lot of time. You see I'm getting it hot, which is no big deal, because I'm wanting the solder to flow around everything, on my bracket and my tube. And there you go, just like that. Of course, you could clean that off, sandpaper when you're done. As you can see, it's all the way around here where I want it. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. You see it's still hot. All the heat's transmitting to the brass a little bit more as it's made a little smoky there. So that's a good thing. It's nice and hot. And then you're going to get your other side right here. I know you probably can't see this with the camera. And then put it right there and solder it. And keep the heat on it. You want to keep heat on it to make sure that the solder and the flux flow together all around your work area that you're soldering. And that looks like that did the job there. And there you go. You soldered the tube to the motor bracket. So that's pretty much it. See how that went all the way around there? Front to back. That's perfect. So you're on your way to building a chassis. This is the first part. Now this is going to be all very hot, so give it some time to cool off, or you may fillet your fingers on here, and that'll hurt because brass, see it's still warm, will transmit heat very nicely. You move these pins out of the way if they're not too hot, and you can feel the heat on that. And there's your first step to that. Your next step is to solder the bushings onto the tube. And what you're going to do with that is you're going to get your bushings. Now, there is another method you could do that Harry has done. Is you could get some solder and put it in the tube here, and then scrape it so that the bushing will fit. And then you could put your bushing in there, and then what happens is when you heat this up, the solder inside will kind of work its way out. I don't do it that way. Harry will probably show you that method. I'm just going to do it the way that I do it. I generally don't do that, but I mean it's just again a different style of building. It's not saying that Harry's way is right and mine is wrong, and mine is right and his is wrong. We're just different type of builders and how we build our cars and our chassis, because everybody's different. Everybody has a different approach to thing, which makes the hobby really cool. And everybody does a different way of doing things because you learn from them as well. So that being said, we're going to go ahead, and our next step is to solder the bushings into the tube. What you're going to do is get your bushings and get that one, and then what I do is I solder the bushings with the axle in there, so this way they line up better, so kind of more of an accurate lineup here, more aligned when you have them in here. And I do just put the axle in there like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my pins and pin this so that it's up against the axles, up against the tube and the bushings. And then what you can do also is you could, if you want, you can, to keep the axle from sliding around, put pins on the end of it like that to keep it from moving side to side. And there you go. That's one way of doing that if you want to go that route. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to solder here and here. Now what I'm going to do is get my flux, and get my solder, and solder right here. And put heat on it. we're going to allow the flux to do the work so it flows around the bushing. Go right around like that. There you go. Just one bushing in. And get the other side. Just like that. Put some flux in there. So flux is going to help you move the solder around your work area. I'm going to come over here. This angle, if you can see it, I hope. And hit it. You can see it's going all the way around the bushing. I can see it right here. Because the flux is doing the job it's supposed to do. Well, it moves around a lot. Don't, worry too much. Because you have the bushing up against the tube there. Keep heat on it. It's important to keep heat on it. If you don't keep any heat on it, it's not going to flow or melt the solder. There you go. Here's that one. So now I have my bushings soldered in with my axle in there to help alignment. So now I have that done. Another thing also is that, and I didn't want to do it with the new motors, that you can't put the motor here. I usually have a build motor, but for first time guys, I'm just telling you to do it this way. Harry may put the motor in. Usually if you have the motor in, it helps hold the bracket down a little bit more, but I'm passing that up because for first time guys who are getting these kits, I want them to do this first, and then later on they could do the motor method by getting it in an old junk motor or something. They could order, or some, an old Carrera motor, I guess, if it would fit here, the S-can motor, and put it on here and bolt it up, and you could do it that way. Because sometimes I build them that way because I have dummy motors, because I have a bunch of motors. But for this, I'm just doing it this way. But you can bolt your motor here if you want to, help with, keeping this down when you put your side rails. But it's up to you. You could do it without it. It's very possible to do it that way. But this is the method I'm using for you guys to see. So again, the other videos are going to have other guys doing different ways of stuff, different methods. So this is what's kind of nice about that. So now that I have this all pretty much cooled down, move these out of the way, and I'm going to move my axle around. There it goes. It'll be a little hard at first, but there you go. It's just from the soldering. That's it. This is fairly still warm, so let's remove the motor bracket. Alright, your next step is going to be getting the two pieces of long brass here, which I believe is the 8151, the square long ones, and you're going to put them right here and put them along the side of the motor rail all the way to the back, as you can see where I have it positioned as the tongue guide slides. And this is where you're going to place your body over this and position where your tongue guide is going to be, and you're going to get your tongue guide as well. And there's just perfect amount of room here. You're going to pin it, and then what I've done was I've gotten the outside measurement of 3203 millimeters and kind of did the same thing here, pretty square. And I think we're all set. And you want them even, as same distance from here to here. You see the guide tongue fits in there perfectly, and that's why we're using this type of guide tongue, so that we could solder it easily and it'll be in position. I know this, don't let that black line kind of trick you, because it looks like it's off, but it's not. It's just the way I drew the line on the board. Sometimes it happens, but it doesn't mean that the car is crooked or anything. It's just the way I may have it tilted this way a little bit, but it's fine. It's square. Everything is where it should be. You go by what your caliper says, even though I know this is kind of off a little, but I think we'll be okay. I just try not to worry about that stuff. But That there is pretty accurate. And then what we're going to do is we're going to position our guide tongue to where it's inside of the car. And that's where you get your body. And what I've done is I've glued the front clip of the Camaro because the clip doesn't come with it, so I could see where the guide tongue will be. And then I will put it right there. Make sure that that's even, with the body line, obviously, of the wheel well. And then I will look at my guide tongue and see where it's at. Now you got to remember, you're going to have the commercial guide, which will stick out probably right about, let's see, I think that's a pretty good spot for it. You give it some room, some distance. You don't want this too close to the end or the guide will stick out. So I got it in the spot where I think will be fine, and then my front axle will run along here behind the guide, obviously. That's where we're going to have it. And that's where the position I'm going to keep it at. And then what I'll do is I'll just pin this here so it doesn't move back on me. And make sure that move that up a little bit right there. I think we'll be okay there. Should be fine with no issues. And you can recheck it. And yeah, we'll be fine. That's enough room for that guide. And you can take the guide and measure from that hole. So if the guide is 2 centimeters, right? Or say from the hole, actually, from the center of the screw stud here. So let's say a little over 1.5 centimeters. So if we're about, let's see, in the hole, so let's grab this here. So it's a little over 1.5 centimeters. So the guide flag will be right about 1.5 centimeters. Right, so we got 1.5 centimeters. So in this position, so we'll get a, if you want, you could get a pin and put one there in that spot. I can get it there. That's about a little over 1.5 centimeters, right? Maybe a little bit more. And I'll put my body over it. That's where the guide tongue is going to be, for the edge of it. So we could probably go back a little because it makes it look a little bit too far. If you want, you could just move this back a little if you're unsure. And then we'll see where it's at right there. Say 1.5 centimeters. So from here to about here, it's a little over 1.5 centimeters. Right there, and that's where your guide tongue would be. And you put your body over it, and then you're going to see where the edge of it's going to be, which will be right underneath the car, which will be just fine, like that. Other guys will also cut a groove in here to put the guide tongue in. You could do that. That's the advantage of the other one, but it's, again, you just got to measure, and you'll put the body on, and at least you'll know where the guide tongue will be. And I think that's plenty of room as the body, as the front clip comes off of my Camaro because the glue didn't set. So let me reset this. This glue did not do the job. So now you know where you're at. So basically about right there. So front guide tongue will be right about, not much clearance, maybe a little bit less, about there. So that should be plenty of space for your body to set up on. Oh, should be plenty of space for you there.
You can do it! You can do it!
Alright, here we go on to the front axle. Doing a voiceover here because I wanted to concentrate on doing this part. So what we're doing is we're measuring basically the same size as the rear axle. So if you get the size of the rear axle where you have it soldered, just pull the wheels off, put your caliper on there if you want to do it that way, or use a little ruler like I did, and you just measure for. All right, here we are. We have the wire that comes with the kit, and what you're going to do is you're going to size this up. So I went all the way back to the motor bracket, and what we're going to do here is just kind of get an idea how far to go, and then you're going to make a bend with some pliers, and you solder along the rail. There is how I'm doing it, and not too hard to do. You just got to hold the wire. You could hold one end and then solder in one spot like the back, and then just work your way down the whole wire itself. As you see, I'm inserting it in there. Then I'll get a marking pin. That's the magnet of the motor pulling the wire, so you might want to pin it. And what I'll do is I can hold it there with my finger, and then I'm going to mark it with a marker where I want to bend it. And bending this wire is very easy. It's not like the 60 thousandths wire. This stuff is very easy to bend. So what you're going to do is get a pair of pliers, just like that. Put them on the end and hold it, or the mark where you marked it on the end of the pliers there, and then you're just going to fold it with your fingers, which isn't very hard to do. Right there, fold it over, and you're making an L shape, an angle, because that's going to support the front axle. And you see I've placed the wheels on there as well to get the height of the front axle, because that'll be the perfect height for it. That guide tongue where it sits, it's in the perfect spot. That's how this kit was designed, so this way you don't have to put a lot of shims. As you can see, I'm cutting them just like that. Please be careful when you cut that. That will fling or fly all over the place, so you just got to be careful when you cut that piece. You see I have a little L-shaped bend, and I'm going to insert it and put it in front of the the axle, the front axle, excuse me. Then I'll make another one a little shorter and put it behind the axle. So there's two supports from the back and two supports in the front. This is just one design. You can use pieces of brass underneath that square tube and stack it. But I figured this is the best method because it comes with the wire. You can use the excess pieces of the 8152 because you will cut those front rails off, so you have some pieces left over. And if you want to do a stack method, you can. I just did this method because it's pretty cool and it works really well, and it does the job. So as you see, I'm just positioning it, and then I'm going to solder in place. And as you see, I think I pinned it back there, but I'm just illustrating where would you solder it at to hold the front axle, up. Then I made another set as I'm doing right now, and those are going to go behind the axle. So this way, again, you have two support points for holding the front axle. Now this isn't really hard to do. It's fairly simple. For the first time guys that are doing it, don't get frustrated with it. You can use like a something to hold it up. As you see, I am doing it on the front first, and there's a reason why. Because if this moves around, the front axle lifts up, I could always heat that spot and push the axle down, because I want those wheels flush onto the board. I don't want it teetering up like, high or low, or, at weird angles, because you want both front tires to make contact on the track. So in this case, both front wheels need to make full contact on the board. And as you solder, that may move, but it's an easy fix. You just take your soldering iron to the front. This is after you do this, and then you could heat that up, and then you could push the axle down if it's not, flush onto the board, to the soldering board. I'm putting, see, a little difficulty. What I'm doing is just soldering them in place here, because it's easier to solder them there, and then you could solder them to the chassis without them, moving around. I like them to be kind of up and down straight as I can get them. And then as you see, getting it all soldered in, and then right there it's held in place. So now you could solder the rest of it to the side rails there. that you have. And I'm going to use my flux. I did cut my finger getting that stupid bottle cut open because I was using a blade. I slipped and I stabbed myself a little, so please be careful using the X-Acto blade. That's why you saw blood earlier in the previous clips. But you know what? The show must go on and must keep soldering, just like I show you guys. Now, if you hold that there, that's okay. Once it's soldered in, let it go because the heat will transfer through that. You'll feel it. So just you could do it momentarily. You just can't leave your finger there for long periods of time. There goes my big hairy arm going across there. And as you see, I'm using a file to kind of hold the wire down as I put heat on it. Now remember, this is a common thing that everybody doesn't understand and that asks me questions that they can't solder is that you have to leave heat on this. And see, I'm not being a little patient. You got to leave heat. Now you see it heat up right there because you're going to heat up the wire, the surface area that you're soldering. All that has to get hot. Once it gets hot, all the solder and the flux is going to help that flow really nicely. And as you can see now, it's starting to work its way. And again, I'm being a little bit impatient. I probably should wait a little longer, but keep your iron on there and keep the heat on. Once you keep the heat on and everything heats up, that's when that solder is going to flow real nice. So I got one wire on there for the axle holder, and I'm going to continue toward the back of it and solder in the back. As you see, I apply my flux, and I'm going to put more solder on there, so this way it's secured to the side rails and you got a solid mount. Not that that isn't a solid mount where it's at, but might as well just solder in the back of it. If you just want to solder in one little area, that's fine. Again, everybody that builds chassis builds it differently. This is just to get your foot in the door. So if you guys have a different way of doing it and you feel you have a better method, by all means do it and share it with us because, you know, it's fun to see other people's take on how they build a chassis. Now, again, Dave, Harry, and myself, we all build things differently, and Dave has mentioned that. So, no one chassis is the same. It's your own design and it's your own way of doing stuff. So, just remember, it's take your time doing it. This is really a lot of fun. You can't get frustrated with it. If you feel like you're getting frustrated, just like with any job you're doing, just step away for a couple minutes. You know, get some coffee, a drink, whatever you have, and come back, and things will be a lot easier. I'm sorry, the camera's out of focus there. It's trying to focus on my hand instead of what I'm soldering, so you can't really see it. But it's basically melting all the solder on there. I'm just putting a little bit more. Maybe I put in more than I should have, but you could clean this up later on by using a what's called a little wick that they sell for cleaning solder off surfaces. Or you can use an old copper braid. Basically, this old copper, braid is what it is that cleans that up, and you heat that up, and then you can just clean that excess brass off, and then use either a little bit of sandpaper, real fine sandpaper, or how would you say and I can't think of it right now, but gosh, sorry, but it's the little like kind of like mesh stuff that you use to scrub stuff, and I can't think of it right now in my head. I'm totally blanking. I'm sorry, but you'll see kind of what I'm speaking of when you see it. It's basically what you use to clean surfaces with. So, but there you go, and that's all soldered in. And you just repeat the process until you got the axle on there, and that's it. And here we go. The chassis is all assembled. That's basically a roller right there. That's the motor, in place. You will cut that rear tube off so you can allow the crown gear to be exposed so it can make contact with the pinion. So that part right there you cut. And as you can see, the chassis is flush all the way around, which is great. The wheels are flush. That is square. As long as you use your micrometer correctly, your caliper, you're good. So see, flush there. That's a roller. You add your body mounts, which is fairly self-explanatory. I'm not going to do a video on that. You just basically solder them in place. You get the strip that's provided with the kit, and you measure it between the body and get it a little short in between the body, so this way you have room. And you cut smaller pieces so you can put on the back. And for the back mounts, the front you could go one strip across like that. And as you see how I have it against the body there. And then from here you just hold on to them, solder them in place, and that's it. The rest of it is just getting the tires trued, putting the wheels on, uh, putting the motor, pressing the pinion gear, and as you can see, you may need to cut those right there a little bit down more. You could shave those if they're sticking out too much on the back where the motor won't fit. And that's it. With the front mount solder, you use pins to hold it in place. It's not hard to do. I didn't really do video on it because it should be pretty easy and self-explanatory on what to do next. And there is the whole roller chassis with all of it assembled, ready to go. I just didn't drill holes for the mount. That's it. And I hogged out the wheel wells, and this is where the body sits on it. And that's it. That's a dirt car. There's a showdown car, and you're all done. And that's it.